All the top stories from the world of business and economy from around the world coming your way. I'm Karthik Malhotra and you're watching World Business Report. Well, the top story coming today from right here in India. In its 7th consecutive Monetary Policy Committee meet, the Reserve Bank of India, India's central bank, has held its key interest rates unchanged, with the 6-member Monetary Policy Committee standing firm. 5 members voted to maintain status quo, signaling a commitment to a withdrawal of accommodation stance. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das underscored the importance of sustained efforts to ensure inflation remains in check, particularly amidst lingering concerns over volatile food prices. Retail inflation for FY25 is seen at 4.5%, well above the Reserve Bank's estimate of 4%, and that is what is keeping rates unchanged for the 7th consecutive time at 6.5%. Well, volatile food prices seen as continuing risks as well. Looking ahead, the RBI is also holding firm to its projection of a 7% expansion of the Indian economy in this fiscal year FY25 and reaffirming its stance amidst a landscape of evolving economic dynamics. And 6.5% is what Shaktikanta Das has given as the interest rate for the 7th time in the monetary policy, which just concluded, held between April 3rd and April 5th. 7.6% is the expected GDP growth for India in FY24. Listen in to what Shaktikanta Das had to say.
After a detailed assessment of the evolving macroeconomic and financial developments and the outlook, the Reserve Bank MPC decided by a majority of 5-1 to keep the policy repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. Consequently, the standing deposit facility, that is the SDF, rate remains at 6.25%. and the marginal standing facility, that is the MSF rate, remains at MSF rate and the bank rate, they remain at 6.75%.
Changing course and moving to the US, in a blow to former US President Donald Trump, US judges have rejected his attempts to dismiss charges in 2 criminal cases against him. One case involves mishandling of classified documents at his estate, while the other pertains to allegations of election interference in Georgia. These setbacks add to Trump's ongoing legal battles challenging the 4 criminal indictments against him. Trump, who maintains his innocence, frames these prosecutions as politically motivated amid speculation about his potential candidacy for the 2024 presidential election. Trump argued that the Presidential Records Act allowed him to keep sensitive documents at Mar-a-Lago post office. This act permits ex-presidents to retain personal records unrelated to official duties. And staying with the US, in a battle for top artificial intelligence talent, Elon Musk reveals Tesla's efforts to retain specialists amidst departure of his AI venture. Musk announces compensation increases as some engineers shift to XAI, citing the craziest talent war. Concerns arise over governance conflicts as personnel exit Tesla for Musk's newer projects. The move comes after Musk's intention to focus on AI elsewhere if not given more control at Tesla. The exodus follows the formation of XAI last year, with Musk aiming to develop an alternative to ChatGPT. OpenAI, where Musk previously co-founded and also invested in, also plays a role as it competes for talent. Despite departures, Musk emphasizes Tesla's AI progress is as it accelerates autonomy efforts. And Amazon Web Services, or AWS, has announced the elimination of several hundred sales, marketing and technical positions as part of a broader restructuring effort within its parent company, Amazon.com. The cuts affect various divisions including AWS Sales, Marketing, Global Services and the Physical Store Technology team. The move comes amidst a series of job reductions across multiple Amazon divisions, including Prime Video, Healthcare and Alexa. The tech giant has been streamlining operations after overhiring during the pandemic, with more than 57,000 job losses recorded across the industry this year. The restructuring at AWS, which employs 60,000 people, is seen as part of a larger reorganization strategy led by Sales Chief Matt Garman. Despite challenges, AWS's cloud business showed signs of stabilization, helping Amazon exceed revenue expectations in the latest quarter. However, competition from rivals like Microsoft, particularly in artificial intelligence investments, poses ongoing challenges to AWS's dominance in the cloud market. And more news emerging this morning from the United States, and this one has to do with Boeing. Boeing is encountering hurdles in the production of its 737 MAX jets amidst intensified quality inspections and regulatory scrutiny. All this after that door plug blew out midair on a 787 MAX. The US Federal Aviation Administration has imposed production restrictions, limiting Boeing to a maximum output of only 38 planes per month until quality issues are resolved. More details in this report.
Boeing faces a battle to produce its 737 MAX jets amid quality checks and scrutiny by watchdogs. Industry sources say output has plunged following the mid-air blowout on one of the planes in January. The incident sparked fresh concern over how well Boeing's best-selling jet is made. The Federal Aviation Administration has imposed a cap on production as a result. Boeing can only produce 38 per month while it takes steps to address quality issues. However, output appears to be fluctuating well below that level. The sources say it sank to single digits in March. That's a big problem for the plane maker, which only gets paid when jets are delivered. It's also a headache for the thousands of firms which supply it, including engine maker CFM, as it too only gets paid when finished planes are handed over to airlines. Meanwhile, Boeing's arch-rival Airbus continues to churn out aircraft, cementing its market lead. Sources say it is seeing monthly output of around 50 A320neo family jets, which compete with the MAX. However, the European firm faces snags of its own, including a shortage of seats. That has delayed the delivery of some of its planes.
And staying with the US again, another story coming in, the biggest battle of boardrooms which has just ended. Walt Disney shareholders have chosen to maintain Chief Executive Bob Iger and all 12 current board members, effectively quashing a high-profile campaign by activist investors. Led by billionaire Nelson Peltz and Blackwell's Capital, the campaign aimed to secure 5 board seats, alleging Disney's underperformance in the streaming television era. More in this report.
Walt Disney shareholders have backed Chief Executive Bob Iger and other company directors, defeating a campaign by activist investors who argued the entertainment giant has underperformed in the streaming television era. Wednesday's vote to re-elect all 12 of Disney's current board members ended the year's most expensive and closely watched boardroom fight. It was launched by billionaire Nelson Peltz and Blackwell's Capital, who were seeking 5 seats between them on Disney's board. With that battle over, Disney's hunt for a successor to Iger kicks into high gear. The board has extended his retirement 5 times, and his new date is by the end of 2026. Members sought to reassure shareholders ahead of Wednesday's vote that they now take the matter seriously and are vetting candidates. Iger, meanwhile, has a window to execute a recovery, analysts say, by making the streaming television unit profitable and launching an app for Disney's flagship ESPN sports network. Iger said with the, quote, distracting proxy contest now behind Disney, it would focus on growth and value creation as well as creative excellence. Peltz's and Blackwell's bids were separate and competing, but both argued the $225 billion media company has bungled its CEO's succession plans, lost its creative spark, and failed to properly harness new technology.
All right, from Walt Disney to Wall Street. Wall Street saw a sharp decline on Thursday as Federal Reserve officials hinted at a delay in interest rate cuts. The Dow, S&P 500 and Nasdaq all fell between 1 and 1.5 percentage points. Investors now await Friday's monthly jobs report for insights into the timing of rate changes. More details coming in this story.
Wall Street closed sharply lower Thursday as Federal Reserve officials indicated an interest rate cut may not occur so soon. The Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq all fell between 1 and 1.5%. Stocks had been higher earlier in the day following U.S. jobless claims data that helped to underpin rate cut hopes. But Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari said if inflation continues to stall, then no rate cuts may be required this year. And Richmond Fed President Thomas Barkin said there was still time for the clouds to clear on inflation before starting to cut rates. Attention now turns to the closely watched monthly jobs report due out Friday for clues on the timing of rate cuts. Gerard Chief Financial Officer Tim Chubb said he sees weakness in the labor market that could lead to an economic downturn.
In job openings, the quits rate, average hourly hours worked, all those are starting to soften. And so if that continues and it does start to pick up a little bit, these things tend to take some time. And, ultimately, looking at the unemployment rate, at 3.9%, up about, 0.5% from the cycle low of 3.4%, we're kind of put into a very, close point in the turning point of the cycle, which, would suggest that we were getting closer to the, impending start of a recession.
Stocks on the move included Levi Strauss, which jumped 12% after the apparel maker raised its annual profit forecast, citing savings from its recent cost-cutting measures and fewer discounts. And shares of ConAgra climbed 5% after beating sales and profit forecasts, as demand for its pantry staples and frozen food items recovered. Meanwhile, oil prices climbed after U.S. President Joe Biden called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza during a call with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that experts described as Biden's strongest rebuke towards Israel since the start of its war with Hamas.
All right, and let's move on now to Europe. French pharmaceutical giant Sanofi has reached a tentative agreement to settle thousands of U.S. lawsuits linking their heartburn pill Zantac to cancer. The agreement, although details remain undisclosed, signifies a move by Sanofi to avoid the financial burden and distraction of ongoing litigation. However, the company has not admitted any liability concerning the now discontinued Zantac drug. Take a look.
French pharmaceutical giant Sanofi has reached a tentative agreement to settle thousands of U.S. lawsuits, which link their heartburn pill Zantac to cancer. Sanofi did not disclose financial details of the deal, nor admit any liability in the settlement over the drug, which is now discontinued. The company said it is settling to avoid the expense and ongoing distraction of the litigation. The agreement, which still needs to be finalized, would resolve most of the lawsuits against the firm in U.S. state courts, around 4,000 of them. That's with the exception of Delaware, where 20,000 suits over the heartburn pill are still pending. Zantac was first approved in 1983 and soared to become one of the most popular drugs in the world. Then, after the carcinogenic chemical NDMA was found in some pills, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration asked manufacturers to pull the drug off the market in 2020. Sanofi has maintained there is no evidence Zantac exposed users to harmful levels of NDMA. The drug maker now sells the reformulated heartburn medicine Zantac 360.
Slipping into a very short break right now, but a lot more coming up on the other side. Stay with News9 Live. You're watching World Business Report.
India's ever-evolving urban landscape is witnessing a new revolution. And this one comes on 4 wheels.
The affluence has been growing. Cars are becoming more a reflection of what you are.
Nobody's talking about hatchbacks. Now what next? The next is the SUV.
The contribution of SUVs is close to 55-60% of the automobile sales these days.
Is that even manufacturers like to sell SUVs?
So, how did a nation obsessed with fuel economy come to love heavy gas-guzzling sports utility vehicles? Let's look at how India fell in love with the SUV.
And well, it's not just SUVs that India is in love with, also smartphones and gadgets. So let's take on our next story. Analysts anticipate a remarkable surge in Samsung's first quarter profits, expected to skyrocket almost ninefold to over $4.2 billion. This surge, marking the highest figure in 6 quarters, is attributed to the strong recovery in memory chip prices, up by around 20% this quarter. More in this report.
Samsung profits look set to jump amid a rebound in chip prices. Analysts expect first quarter earnings to surge almost ninefold to over $4.2 billion. That would be the best number in 6 quarters. The prediction comes as memory chip prices see a strong recovery. They had plunged amid weak demand for gadgets following the end of the global health crisis. Now the rebound is being driven by factors including the boom in artificial intelligence products, which demand large numbers of high-end semiconductors. Memory chip prices are up by around a fifth on the quarter. The outlook for Samsung's giant mobile phone business is less clear. In January, the company launched a new flagship handset featuring a variety of AI-driven functions. Partly as a result, analysts expect it to ship more phones over the quarter. However, they also predict the unit will see a slight decline in profits. Samsung is due to report preliminary earnings on Friday and full numbers later in the month.
All right, and let's take on with Asia. The Suzuka circuit in Japan is gearing up for this weekend's Formula One race, which is taking place in April instead of its usual autumn timing. Organizers aim to attract more international visitors to the event, traditionally attended by a predominantly domestic audience. Take a look.
Japan's Suzuka circuit is busy preparing for this weekend's Formula One race, but it's a new timing for the event, which usually takes place in the autumn. Organisers reckon they've got a plan to lure more international visitors to a contest that has long drawn a largely domestic audience. For one thing, moving the event to April puts it in a popular holiday season, when tourists flock to see the country's famous sakura cherry blossoms. Suzuka General Manager Eijiro Oda says the spring has another advantage too.
Until last year, the F1 Japanese Grand Prix was held in the autumn and was often affected by typhoons, so we were quite concerned about the weather. It is a big relief for us that we no longer need to worry about that this year.
Tourist attractions in Japan have one more trump card to play right now too, because the weakness of the yen is making this a very cheap destination for overseas visitors. The currency is currently at multi-decade lows against the dollar. That helped draw almost 2.8 million travellers to Japan in February, a record for the month. At Suzuka, there were already signs last year of rising tourist numbers. The 2023 race saw ticket sales to overseas visitors jump fourfold from before the global health crisis. Local restaurants also reported soaring numbers of foreign customers. At a pre-race event in Tokyo, the new timing for the race seemed to be going down well with fans.
Usually the race in autumn and October, but now it's a springtime for me, and I want to see like sakura Sakura Gardens. I want to see Suzuka. It's a very good time for me.
That leaves organisers preparing more English language content in anticipation of the foreign visitors, and hoping that the cherry blossom is fully out just on time.
Well, in Baghdad's heavily fortified green zone, the future Rixos Baghdad luxury hotel is financed by Qatar. In fact, is set to host Gulf Arab monarchs and other Middle Eastern dignitaries during the planned Arab League summit next year. Iraq aims to attract more investment from Gulf Arab states amid record oil revenues and a rapidly growing population. Take a look.
This is the future home of the Rixos Baghdad, a luxury hotel financed by Qatar in the city's heavily fortified green zone. Iraq hopes to host Gulf Arab monarchs and other Middle Eastern emissaries in the hotel's 470 luxury rooms and suites when they arrive for a planned Arab League summit next year. The Iraqi government has been pushing for more investment from the Gulf Arab states. After years of war and instability, Iraq is now benefiting from record oil revenues, which is helping to spur demand for consumer goods from its rapidly growing population of at least 43 million. The country's top trade partners are currently China, Iran, and Turkey. But Gulf Arab states, which have had a complicated relationship with Iraq, have recently pledged a string of investments as they seek to grow soft power in a country where regional rival Iran has unparalleled influence. In 2023, Saudi Arabia said it had set aside $3 billion for investment in Iraq via its Public Investment Fund, and announced a $1 billion mixed-use project including offices, shops, and more than 6,000 residential units. Gulf nations have also signaled growing interest in Iraq's energy sector, a key zone of influence for Iran, which supplies up to 40% of Iraq's power. More deals include developing oil production, carbon capture, power plants, natural gas fields, and a solar farm. Iraq is in the process of linking its power grid to Kuwait and in the future to Saudi Arabia. Questions remain over how Iran will react to Iraq's growing presence in the region, while an upswing of violence has highlighted the fragility of Iraq's relative stability. There have been more than 4 months of attacks by Iran-aligned armed groups on U.S. forces stationed in Iraq. Many investors also have concerns about rampant corruption and stifling bureaucracy in Iraq, making everything from signing a contract to getting paid exceedingly difficult.
Well, remnants of a war-torn Baghdad there, but there's another war going on in invasive Asian hornets are wreaking havoc worldwide, preying on native pollinators like honeybees and often being misidentified. But the University of Exeter News AI-driven system, WESP AI, is changing that. Watch this report to know more.
This is the invasive Asian hornet. But would you be able to ID it from a glance? The species has been wreaking havoc across the globe, preying on native pollinators like honeybees. And they've been getting away with it because they're often misidentified for other species. That's where the University of Exeter's new AI-driven system comes in. It allows users to spot the hornets with remarkable accuracy and help save local species along the way. The system is called WESP AI.
The way WESP AI works is it's not so much a trap as it is a sort of passive bait or monitoring station.
Thomas O'Shea Weller is one of the researchers behind it.
It has this liquid hornet attractant, which is made with sugar and sort of fermented fruit compounds, which attracts hornets, wasps, and there's then a camera mounted above it, which takes images of these insects so that then the AI can watch all of these images and identify what insects it's seeing with a specific lookout for Asian hornets.
Once the hornet is identified, whoever is operating the system is sent an email or text alert. The team says catching the hornet's arrival early is crucial to prevent an invasion. If this narrow window is missed, the production of new queens can occur, and a population will likely establish.
Well, Sotheby's is putting up for auction the trunks worn by Muhammad Ali during his famous October 1975 fight in the Philippines, which concluded one of boxing's greatest trilogies. Take a look.
Here we have the shorts that Muhammad Ali wore in the Thrilla in Manila in 1975, which many consider to be the greatest boxing match of all time. This was his third match against his greatest rival, Joe Frazier. These shorts are one of Ali's iconic designs. So the white satin with the black stripe on the side is something that he wore throughout his career. You can see on the label that it says made especially for Muhammad Ali. And we've done a process called photo matching, where we've actually lined up minute details of threads and different wrinkles in the shorts to authenticate them back to the match in 1975. You'll see on the back of these shorts there's actually still a sort of red tint from the time that Ali spent in that fight against the ropes. So the shorts themselves tell an amazing story about the fight. After the match, he famously sort of said, "This is the closest to dying that I've ever been," which in a way was prophetic. And you know, this was sort of at the twilight of his career, and his last sort of great major fight in the sweltering heat of Manila in the Philippines.